Got it.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Okay, good. Yeah, all right. Yeah,
That's the England convict.
all right. So let me share my screen here.
It's either was a convict or is a convict. There's been beginning a lot of crap about him lately on that.
Okay, so I gotta find the right screen here.
Hey, we can see your share screen, Dave.
Yeah, I'm working on it here.
I don't
All right.
care about Charles Bronson.
Okay, so play from start. Okay, you see it now?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, great. All right.
it's good.
So here I am in my car. All right. So here's the agenda: introductions, club business. Andy will give an update, and then our feature presentation, which is by Oliver and Denny about their experience in CQ Worldwide CW last year from 3B8.
Yeah.
Part of the world that I don't know how many of us have operated from there, but I certainly haven't.
Yeah.
So interested to hear it. Okay, so now call out your call sign. Let's go through this by suffix. So anything A to D.
86E.
That's an E, but that's okay.
K6AO.
Those Hawaiians.
Is that all? All right, E to H.
November 6, Echo Echo.
WA2,
WX6G.
WA2, Foxtrot, Hotel Foxtrot.
K3 Echo Sugar Tokyo.
Okay, I to L.
K6LRN.
Kilo 6, Kilo Mike.
M to P.
Kilo 7 Mike Sugar.
W6NV.
Please copy KX7M.
NA60.
Okay, Q to U.
K6TQ.
W6SC,
Whiskey Delta
What?
6 Tango.
Kilowatt 6 Noe Tahoe,
And finally, V to Z, or anybody that we missed.
86.
Kilo 6.
Last letter Yokohama, AE6Y.
N6XI.
Exidy.
And 6 Whiskey Mike.
Kilo Oscar 6 Mike.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Now, April 15th is our next meeting. It's the annual awards meeting. And it will be in person at Cattleman's in Livermore. It will start with the election of new officers. And if you're interested in running for office, please contact any board member. There'll be an RSVP for the food coming soon to the NCCC announce. So keep an eye out for that. So I hope many of you can make it for that. It's Bob N6 TV will be taking pictures again like the good old days, and it'll be happy times are here again. Okay, again, I am looking for somebody to take over for me for president because my term is running out, and April will be my last meeting. So we also need an awards manager right now. I'm kind of covering for that along with Gary and along with K06M, but we really need a real awards manager. So we don't want to walk off the end of the cliff there. So please think about stepping up and contact one of us. Okay, now Visalia is coming up next month, and we're going to be doing the Contest Academy as a half day. Chris, N6WM is organizing it, and here's tentative schedule so far. There'll be a welcome from him, then N6TV will be presenting on using waterfalls to optimize your contesting experience. Chris will be talking about remote operating for multi-multis, and W9KKN will be talking about something to be determined, and K9CT, Craig also. And then there'll be an open roundtable discussion. I also wanted to mention we've lost quite a few people in the last year, and just here's a list of them. So just take a look at that for a second and think about them. Now I wasn't sure if Andy was going to make it, so I made this one slide, which I'll go over and then I'll hand it over to him. The KB contest has started up again. Gary is still in charge of that. So he'll be presenting the winners in April, and the new one is running. The rules are up there. There's a few changes to the rules, so you might want to check that out at our website. Also, the Champion of Asia Oceania contest, another intra-club contest, is going again this year. And the first contest of the year is the GIGX CW, which is happening pretty soon. So here's some of the upcoming contests. The CQ Worldwide WPX sideband is on March 25th. It's a focus contest. It's also a KB contest. GIDX CW, as I just mentioned, is April 8th. Let's see. 7QP, 7th Area QSO Party, is always a fun one. That's May 6th. That's also a KB contest. And then the CQ Worldwide WPX CW is at the end of May. And then there's lots of QSO parties in between. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy.
Okay, I don't have much of a formal report. I did want to talk a little bit about WPX, and also, we're in the midst of good contest season stuff right now. I mean, for example, Dave has sent out emails recently about Sprint Riddy, well, actually, he didn't send an email, but Sprint Riddy was last weekend. And are you still on top of the leaderboard, Dave?
Yeah, at the moment, until the log checkers shoot holes in my log.
Well, congratulations. That's pretty exciting, though. Nonetheless, I think our team has done very well. Also, I think the team's in first place too, aren't we?
I think the team's in second place. There was another one of those SWAC teams that.
Yeah, but those don't count. In my reading, those never count because they pull in people from around the country typically. And at least the way I look at these is I look at the local teams that have regional competition. But anyway, that's my own point of view. I realize that's not necessarily the published point of view. Sprint SSB scores were published recently, and again, I think our team came in second. And that's a very good result as well. The ARRL DX contest, the last, I think you all know, the phone was last weekend, and not last week, the weekend before last, sorry. And CW was 2 weeks before that. And there was a lot of club participation. People who were in it from California, I think, had a great time working Europe on 10 meters. And, it's just, when 10 meters is that way, it's a lot of fun. It's a mixed bag when you're in the Caribbean. I was in Aruba for phone, and I appear to have won low power. But there are hours when you just can't work anything. I mean, there are hours when you work over 200 guys an hour, almost 300, 1 hour, even low power. But then there are other hours when somehow it just seems like the US and Europe are having a wonderful old time. And, every 5 minutes, someone might hear you from the South. So it's kind of a strange phenomenon. Actually, the guy who won high power appears to be Tom 8P5A, and I don't know if he still has any club affiliation with us. Is he still a member of our club? Do we have any chance of getting points from him ever?
Yeah, he's still an associate member. Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we'll have to talk to him about whether he's active in another club, because he made 9,000 contacts. He won high power by about 50%. I mean, he's got a new station in Barbados. I think he was forced to close his old one when he lost his lease, so to speak, because he did not own the property. But now he's got a new setup, and obviously he's working really well. I want to also talk briefly about WPX, which is coming up. This has been a focus contest of ours for years. And I know Chris, assuming Chris becomes contest chairman next, for the next year or two. A couple of interesting things about it. I mean, we have done very well in the past. I remember about 20 years ago, I was VPCC then, and we put a big effort and we won, and we set a club record. I can't remember what, I think it was 2003. The club record then had been held by Contest Club of Finland, and it was 250 million points. We scored 253 million, just barely beat the record. However, because it's WPX, my recollection is about half of our points came from 3 travel stations. One was the HC8 guys, one was Tom at 8P5, and the other was our Aruba station, P40L and P49Y. And so those 3 stations between them, I think, scored more than half of the 250 million points. So that's a major problem. We have to, if we want to go to try to win it again, we really have to push some more travel. We're still doing some of that. Of course, Tom may not be with us anymore as a club matter. The HC8 station's closed. Our P4 station is still active. And for example, this year, John 4 is going to do WPX sideband. I'm going to do CW. So that's at least active. I was also thinking, and this is something, Chris, I don't know if you might want to latch onto at all, whether we ought to challenge the other major US clubs to some sort of competition not involving travel stations. In other words, everybody else except the stations that go off and do de-expeditions. And that would very much level the playing field because it wouldn't be, the result would not depend on sort of the black swan events of the great score from somebody who's not in your location, not in your locale rather. So I was wondering if that's something we might consider doing as a way of breathing life back into WPX as a club sport, to see if there's some way to net out the travel stations, not for the purpose of reporting to CQ, because we're still competing against other clubs that way, but to make it a more localized competition. Anyway, I throw that out. The difficulty of planning WPX always is that we change leadership about now, and then WPX starts sort of about now at the same time. So in a sense, we would really be planning for next year, not for this year. Anyway, that concludes my report. I hope everybody does get active in WPX and has a good time with it.
Okay, thanks, Sandy. So, well, we're running early. I guess I didn't have much to say today. So I'm going to move right along and introduce Oliver and Denny. Oliver's been a member of the club since way early on, and he's done major de-expeditions all over the world. He has a formidable station up in the hills. And Denny frequently also operates there. He's also done a lot of de-expeditioning, and they give us a lot of competition up there when we're at N6RO. Somebody's video is flashing.
Yeah,
kind of
I
crazy
know.
way. Oh, there you go. Okay. Anyway, I would read more about their bios, but I forgot my reading glasses. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Denny and let me make sure that you can share your screen here. Just a second.
Great. Yep.
Okay. To find it.
Yeah, I'm not able yet, so you have to let me share.
Yeah, okay. Stand by a second. Okay. I really can't see. Allow record. Gotta be one of these. Maybe I can figure out how to not
Hey,
be.
Dave, can I walk you through it for a minute? Are you on a Windows?
No, I'm on a Mac. I clicked on Denny. There's like a menu. I just can't read it because I can't see, as I said. Let's see. There's stop video.
Yeah, it's still disabled.
Yeah, I know. I haven't done anything yet. Make host. I found it. All right. Thank God. Okay, now try it.
Okay, that should work, I think. Let me see.
There it is.
There you go. We see it.
Let me know if you start seeing the screen.
We
Okay,
s-
great.
we see it now.
Yep, it's up.
Thank you. Great. Thanks for giving us opportunity to share what we did. Actually, this is not the first and only time we visited Mauritius. A couple of times, but I think this is the first time I'm talking about it along with Oliver. So we'll just go through these slides to show you, mostly through photos, all of the things we did and all the suffering we had to endure and some fun we had along the way. So just to show you in the beginning, this badge, this kind of like a icon of our expedition, was created by Philip DK6XP, and it shows all the beautiful beaches, tropical island with extinct dodo bird. And I also recently learned, I think from you, Dave, that it may not be extinct. They might revive this bird again, so resurrected. Anyways, but this bird is holding the VD antenna, the vertical dipole array, which was our primary antenna on this expedition.
Think you dropped out, Denny.
Expeditions. So it's a kind of like, okay, do you still hear my audio, or let me stop my video if that helps?
The audio is good. It's just a little low.
Okay, I'll just try to. Let's see if I can, if by stopping the video, maybe that helps. Is it okay, or?
Yeah, your audio is fine.
Okay, and I hope presentation is good. So anyway, so moving along, we just want to share where we went. And for those who don't know where Mauritius is, it's at the end of the world. It's actually the other end of the world. It's in the South Indian Ocean, very close to Madagascar. There are daily flights, mostly from Europe, because it's a pretty well touristic destination for French population. And there are daily flights out of London with British Airways. There is a flight from Germany, from Frankfurt. That's the one I took. I think Austria flies out of Vienna. But getting out of US, I think the best deals are nowadays with Air France through Paris. But you have to, I think, understand that the layovers will probably set you back for like one way to like almost 30-hour trip from SFO through Europe down to Madagascar. So I think it's a 10 to 11-hour flight from somewhere in Europe to Madagascar. To Mauritius. And I think there are also daily flights to South Africa. You can, from this island, you can hop to 3B9 and I think 3B7, also to S7, there are daily flights. Okay, other than that, British administration, French culture, very easy to get along with English. If you know French, it's a little bit easier because majority of population speaks French. If you do rent a car, you have to drive it on the left side of the road. So that's pretty much what to say. It's a relatively small island, end to end, maybe hour and a half to 2 hour driving, but there's sometimes a lot of traffic to deal with. So after we got there, I mean, just looking where we are, where everybody else is, and it's pretty far away. I mean, everything, North America, Europe, everything is in like northwest direction. And of course, the juicy multipliers far east, it's in around 50 or 60 degrees. Everything is really a long path from here, but majority of our of station that we want to work is if we turn the antennas to the north or northwest, northeast. Should be pretty easy to work VK and South America, but what we were looking previous years and this year to find a location that's somewhere on the northern side of the island, so that we have just water ahead of us and clear shot to north. Because anyways, the bottom of the south side of the island are volcanic mountains. I think one of the photos from David earlier showed some of these really tall mountains. The airport is here in the south of the island. the north, the capital, unless just getting the license, I would recommend to avoid it because just so much traffic, so hard to go around. The very northern tip of the island, which would have been perfect, it's just not good. There's just too many hotels, too many houses, a lot of noise. Clive, 3B8 CW, who hosts the RBM, has a lot of problems on the low bands with the noise. So it wasn't just great location. Our goal was to find something on this side because this area called Roche Noir is where the villas are located, plenty of spacing between them, and should be easy to put some of the antennas and not disturb neighbors or the environment. So in I think 2014, Olaf and the crew went to one place, and then after that year, they have looked at this location. So this was not activated in 2019 or 20. In 2014, Olaf, Oliver, Jorma, and Seppo and Kazu, I believe, all operated from right this spot. But then there's Olaf handpicked this location and set his sights to rent this place. So what do you think? Would this be any good location to anybody to try to do something? So we thought so. I think this island is an island on the island. So it's like a separate island. You can reach it with the car. This place here is the villa we rented. But the really most important thing is that the waves, they break like, what is it, like maybe a mile or 2 miles away from from this lagoon. So this lagoon is really quiet. The tides are maybe no more than a foot or two, and it's really calm to put the antennas right in the water or near the salt water. So this is pretty much 360 around. Yeah, that was our intent, to put the antennas just in front of the house around and get the best benefits of the verticals near the salt water.
Yeah,
yes.
Denny, let me just chip in that you've understated. This is a very, very special place, and far, far away. And I think that we owe a lot to Olaf for picking it, and the basis of our success is really this location.
True. The name of this place, Villa Lilo, and it is, I think, in the book of Mauritius, 100 places to visit. I think it's mentioned. I don't know why. For me, it's just amazing for HF radio, but I guess it's interesting to tourists. So yeah, after 2014, when Olaf and Oliver looked at this site, Olaf, I think, managed to book it in advance in 2019, and since then, except the COVID year, he has rented this place a year in advance, and 2023 is on our calendar as well. So another important thing is there are a couple of these rocks around the islands, and we use them as well for some of the antennas to get better separation. CQ Worldwide, it's a perfect time of the year to visit Mauritius. It doesn't, I think prior to November, October or September, they have a lot of wind from the southeast side. That's the windward side. And it blows pretty well. I think I cannot remember, 2016 or 17 is where all the waves and the wind, they blew off this bridge connecting the island. So cannot remember who was it from England who got trapped. So his rental car remained on this island and couldn't return it on the way back. So it just had to be rescued with a boat. Take all the gear out. And yeah,
that was Nigel. Nigel's operated here at G3 TXF several times, primarily in the UK contest.
So yeah, he experienced the harsh weather, but we didn't have any of that. It was really beautiful. Daytime temperatures, mid-80s, 85 to 90. Nighttime, 75 to 80. So perfect weather. Later on in December and January, it's where real heat starts. So not good to visit it later in their summer. The place we rented, a 4-bedroom villa that two bathrooms, 4 bedrooms, a really large living room with like library and just place to relax. But out of all these places, except sleeping, most of us spend almost all of the time on this patio, which is facing to the north. Couple of like lounge chairs for food, big table for dinners and lunch, although we immediately occupy this table for way more important things. Every villa actually on this whole stretch of the Roche Noire is usually rented and comes with a service of a cook and a cleaner. So there are all these ladies who will show up early in the morning around 7 or 8, and they will prepare the food that we usually purchase and some of the local fish catch. And they will also do the laundry. And the common thing is that they would serve this food. So we'll be seated on this table and they serve the food. But after 1 year, we just didn't like that idea of being served. First, all of us were waking up at different times. We all had something to do. So just having a formal lunch or formal breakfast just made no sense to us. So we asked them just to make something like a buffet table, cut all the fruits and vegetables or prepare the food, and we'll just come and help ourselves and serve it and eat and bring the plates back. Yeah, this beautiful lagoon in front, I mean, you can easily swim. It's pretty safe. There are no waves. If you don't want to swim or expose yourself to sun, you can just sit in the front. There's plenty of shade, a lot of these chairs. Behind the house, there are 2 kayaks, and I think we took a couple of trips around this whole lagoon and just started exploring, see if we can make some antennas further away. You can throw a beach party, but I think people like us would prefer just to use this place for the radio. So the time that we get to the island is usually like a week or almost more than a week before. So 7 days before the contest, we would plan to arrive because we have to build all the antennas. Then 2 days of contest and maybe 2, 3, 4 days after the contest to take all the gear, disassemble it, clean it, and pack it back for the next year. So all in all, maybe 2 weeks of this ordeal means we have to worry about our survival. And one of the really important things is food. So let Oliver tell us, how did we manage to go through this suffering?
Well, I think part of the special advantage of this location, which is really our own villa with all of the support, was going out on living off the local economy and sampling the local cuisine cooked by the 2 ladies that work with us. The local vegetables and fruits were sourced along the road for the most part. This is one of the larger stands, but the fresh fruit and vegetables, our favorites, of course, were the papaya and the pineapple. And I think, we had exotic, berries that went along with it. The local sweet potatoes and squash for vegetables, with the lentils and rice. But I think, our favorites were the proteins. You can see here, we're cooking tuna steaks. These tuna steaks were about a pound a piece, about 1 inch thick, and marinated before we grilled them. And along with that, we'd have a very large fruit salad with ice cream. So you can see that we did very well. Some of the other cuisine you see here is the curries. Everything came, as a curry. This one happens to be octopus curry, but we had a shrimp, and we had the local captain fish, just caught on the reef by the local fishermen. They came by in the morning and they approached the ladies if we were interested. So we went out and took a look and picked our fish, right up at the front door. So that's really fishing. The contesters' diet, consisted with curry, with wine and cheese. Not the baby food and coffee that you other guys use.
Let me chip in, Oliver, just to mention. I mean, this specific meal of tuna fish steaks. What we had about 8 pieces. So this was a really morning catch that we found on the street. And with one of the ladies who also helped us to do shopping, the guy literally just cut open the tuna and cut these slices for us. So 8 pieces, I don't know how many pounds of that, but we paid somewhere between $20 and $25 for all of it. And it was delicious. On top of that, the fruits and vegetable shopping, there are pretty big convenience stores, like, what is it called, like Super U, something like a big supermarket where we could buy drinks and other ingredients.
I think, with that, we had to wash it all down. And so, the beverages, centered around the Phoenix beer on one hand, and the wines and gins and rums on the other. The Phoenix Pilsner came in about a 750 milliliter bottle, so it's truly a big beer. Philip decided that it wasn't quite as good as the German lagers and the rest, but he, I guarantee you, made it do. The rum and cokes and the gin and tonics and the rum punches, all were very good. But I think you can see here, the South African wines primarily. The photograph is actually the cleanup crew after putting away all the antennas, finishing off, the leftovers of the wine and cheese. But from 74 to 79, I lived in South Africa, where South African wines are almost unknown here. I got to know that the Parle Rieslings and in particular the Pinotages. The Pinotage is a cross between a Pinot Noir and a Cinsault. And I think that became our go-to wine. If you go out and go looking, some of the good brands to look for in South African wines are Nederburg or KWB or Lancerak. They're not expensive, and they're definitely world-class. You have any comments on the food and beverages, Denny?
No, I think we enjoy them all the time. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We most of, again, shopping for drinks were in these local markets, pretty well stocked. I believe the bottle of Nederburg was somewhere around 5 to 600 rupees, so $11 to $12 a bottle.
And this is the upscale wines. The cheap box South African wines are a third of that, probably.
Yep. So let's see the other part that we want to show you. So this whole operation, that the going to this island of Mauritius, being so far away, was a long dream of Olaf, who made his vacations for like 10 or 15 years prior, these last few years when we operated as a 3B8M. And over the years, some of that gear has been stocked and left over at the local garage. I think Pat 3B8FA is a really dear friend who helped us to store this gear in his garage and bring it a week before the contest in his pickup truck. So I think this way of delivery, to me, it's way more secure, easier to get than using a Zodiac or something to swim across the ocean. Nevertheless, the gear that we are storing here is some heavy-duty gear, like the heavy coaxes, the spider beam carbon fiber poles. We had for low bands 18-meter poles, 3 of them, a number of 12-meter poles, lots of rope and wires that are just heavy to carry every time. So over the years we stored a lot of that gear. But still, this is a type of a field day operation where we mostly bring our expensive equipment, and some of this stuff remains there. gets staged, gets stored, brought back like Saturday or Sunday before the contest. We stage everything down and we start thinking where to start and how to build our gear. So really the main work, the whole assembly is about building the antennas. Before we even get to the island, we start thinking, what are we going to do this year? So what you see on the right-hand side, this is the aerial photo of the villa and that water surrounding and few rocks that I showed in the earlier picture. So as mentioned earlier, everything is to the north. So we place these antennas based on the prior year's knowledge and improvements. Low bands, they worked well in the past, and we put them at the back of the house, so the 80-meter vertical with radial system, and 160 even further out at the far south side of the house. Right in front of the house, we put 10, 15, and 20-meter VDAs. But unlike last year, where we had only one VDA, this year, or 2022, we wanted to put a pair of VDAs. And 40-meter vertical dipole. K9AY receiving loop was a change previous year, 2021. We had it here next to the house. It didn't work well. It picked up a lot of noise, so we decided to move it away from the house, away from all the digital noise and lights and LEDs and whatnot. We also tried beverage on the ground behind the house. That also didn't work well. So this was our set of antennas, I think 14 elements. I think we also counted QO100, the satellite that Francois 3B8HI and Patrice 3B8FA brought, and they kind of like lended it to us so we can make QSOs, few hundred, mostly SSB QSOs with Europe and Africa was made. And the satellite was right here in front of the house. And on top of that, Philip and Jamie, the youngsters, they made a lot of QSOs on work bands on 12, 17, and 30-meter verticals. So that was our plan. The execution of it revolved around first designing the VDAs to work in a phase. And I think Oliver can tell you more about this official document that we used for assembly.
Yeah, this is actually our construction drawing used to build all the VDAs last year. There's a story that goes along with it, of course. The primary target is 320 degrees, which is USA, Europe, and secondary target Japan at about 50 degrees. But these are all long haul paths, and you need to get right down on the horizon. Less than 10 degrees, 2 to 3 degrees, the best. The vertical dipole is the obvious choice. The diagram shows an inverted V at about a half wavelength, versus a vertical dipole. To the right, you'll see the water side. To the back side, you see land, and you see where immediately you're picking up a good 10 dB on the horizon, with just a vertical. If you go to the next step, which is a single VDA, a VDA being a vertical dipole with a reflector, okay, you're picking up about another 5 dB. And then this year, we had experimented with it last year, was phased VDAs. You see Denny going back and forth between the phase pattern, which picks up another 3 dB, and the out of phase pattern, which allows us to pick up more of Japan and Central South America when we switch to the out of phase mode. But when you consider that these phase VDAs give you about 18 dB, or about 50 times power gain, right on the horizon, compared to a inverted V or something like that. This is a real moneymaker, and it's come with a lot of experimentation over the years. Some of this started way back with Tom Schuler and his team Vertical operations from Jamaica, in the 80s, and I think in the Bahamas in the late 80s and things like that. So some of what Tom found out with his team Vertical, which were at that time separate halfway vertical and a reflector, poked into the sand. They were then picked up by Dick N6AA and his operations at a half dozen different multis over the year as a D expedition, which I also participated in and got a feel for the advantages of these. Then using the VDA, and now all of our antennas were modeled by Olaf using EasyNet with the Auto EZ. And this allows us to optimize the gain, the SWR bandwidth, and the front to back ratio. In general, these VDAs are quite forgiving when you put them together and tune them up. Do you want to go on to the next slide? I think half of the battle is figuring out how to get this stuff together. Having a lot of the poles stored there over the years, the routine of putting it together was divided into two tasks. One group, K0AV and myself, doing most of the VDAs, and Philip, Jamie, and Denny doing most of the low band antennas, and then of course Olaf liked the low band receive antennas and worked with Denny on that. So over the years, a lot of experimentation with proved very beneficial. And like Denny pointed out, you want to go to the next one, I guess, the layout.
You want to say something, Oliver? What was how did you guys put these together with respect to putting it in tightening the elements? These are telescopic elements, so spider beam.
So what you have, what we were using were spider beam masts, the 12 meter and 18 meter masts to construct these with fishing poles and a plastic breadboard drilled and zip tied to the mast to actually put the antenna together. And then using the document you saw earlier with the dimensions, we put it together quite quickly. It probably takes 2 hours to put one together and get it ready, and then we tested it. Oftentimes an inch or two of proportional additions or deletions to the wires to bring the SWR to the point of interest in the CW bands was done. But in this whole process, there were certain keys to this, and one of the biggest ones learned by experience was to let the poles heat cycle with the clamps on them for at least a day, because the intense temperatures on the black poles caused the clamp to fail if you would put the antenna up. So that we learned that, and of course you don't want anything to touch the sand, the poles, the tools, or the rest, because the grit, makes these things really nasty to deal with. And on the light fashion, putting them away, cleaning them for the next year is a priority task in the end. I think, the important key pieces, here in all of this is to have the spares, the coils, the capacitors, and a good analyzer. And we found, the military ground stakes were invaluable to pound into the heavy volcanic rock. We had 2 sets of tools, that proved invaluable for 2 teams, and all of these antennas, went together in 2 days. So I think there's a lot to be learned. I think that the real point was to stay hydrated, and we were able to do that too.
Yeah, the way we worked with these assembly of these antennas, we'll prepare just like Oliver explained and let them heat cycle for a whole day. And then we just put one after another antennas in kind of like reverse order to just navigate around this narrow path. And this is an example once of the 20-meter VDA. So it is pretty lightweight. We would just test it, make sure it all works fine, adjust the tuning of the antenna. And maybe 1 or 2 people, it's very lightweight to carry it to the spot where we wanted to put it. So it takes really 1 person to just lift it off the ground, put it upright, and then anchor it into this volcanic rock. That was probably the biggest challenge. But it really takes 1 person to keep it up, and the other 2 people can just supervise the job. What you also see here, the coax that was taped along the boom, well, it's out of the way, but it served kind of like almost like a rotation of the VDA. For most of the time, we kept VDAs pointed to the north-northwest. But at some parts of early morning where we wanted to emphasize before Europe opens and we had to work JAs and Far East, we would turn one of these VDAs towards 50 degrees towards JA. And then when the Europe opens, we just take that coax and rotate it and just jam the coax and make sure it keeps the antenna from rotating.
The coax runs from the driven elm up front all the way along the boom and out the back of the reflector, so that you have minimum coupling.
So for the low band antennas, you see Jamie M0 SDV and Philip DK6XP putting these big verticals with the top loading. All these wires and very tiny rope to keep it lightweight it was a big challenge because they all get tangled, and the moment they fall down on this sharp volcanic rock, they're tangled immediately. So the biggest part of a day was spent in untangling these wires, laying it out, making sure you don't trip on them, and they're all out of each other's way. The verticals, they had 2 sets of guy wires. The high band VDAs, they only had 1 set of guy ropes anchored at 3 points. And of course the set of radials. Another really big challenge is this volcanic rock is very hard, very sharp, and when it's wet, it's extremely slippery. So you don't want to fall on that and injure yourself. This is something where we had to slow down and just take it really easy. I think we could put one of these verticals in a little bit less of a day, but it takes maybe for 3 verticals almost 3 days to put it. This was our 40-meter vertical dipole on one of the rocks, and it was away from the house, so Alan K080 had to put his coax under the water to reach to the antenna, and he seems to be pretty happy for his operation of 40-meter. So another picture, this is, well, it's more or less assembled. So what you see here right next to the water, so it's almost in the water. This is a pair of 20-meter VDAs pointing. This one points to the northwest. This one maybe it's rotated to Japan. This is one of the 15-meter VDAs. Right next to it is another pair of another 15-meter VDA. And on the next picture here is it's kind of harder to see 2 10-meter VDAs right next to each other. So they're very close to the shack. Short run of the coax. Again, 40-meter vertical dipole, coax through the water, and this is the K9AY loop, the mast for wires for K9AY, also coax through the water. Okay, and one more picture from the south side of the villa, which is right here. 160 doesn't fit in the picture, pretty tall. 160-meter vertical, 80-meter vertical, and again the 20-meter VDAs. So this view here, what you see is towards north-northwest, nothing but water for thousands of miles. So it's pretty good view to the north. And into the sunset again, a view for satellite 10-meter VDAs. By the way, sunsets are pretty beautiful here. We use them before the contest to try to operate with West Coast on 160 or 80, and that's probably the best time to get on the local sunrise here and local sunset over there over the gray line propagation. But it's just amazing to sit in this shack from here, one of the chairs, and look at the sunset. I think it's time to mention the team. 6 operators this year: Alan Kaiser, Ravi, myself, Jamie, Phil, a signed flag of 3B8M. So we had dedicated 10 flags and signed them, and we announced on over the social media that 10 lucky winners of those who work us on all 6 bands will get this mailed. So out of, I think we had 110, 120 stations who worked us on 6 bands have received the signed flag. And this operation would be really hard to do it solo. I think Kazu, who operates from 3B9 CW, did it, and it was really hard. He complained for lack of fun that he had previous year, but not this year when he was single op. For us, this was just a primary thing is to have fun, and it's much easier when you have more operators. But also, they all bring different skills to the table: operating skills, hearing skills, theoretical and practical skills, building the antennas. So it just made more sense to do this as a not big but multi-op, 6 people multi operation. Okay, Jamie, M0SDV, by profession policeman in Birmingham. This is his 2nd year of operation from 3B8M. Both years he did amazing job on 15, 3,000 Qs last year, 3,300 Qs this year. Pretty much worked everything what he could hear on 15. Denny KX7M I operated on 20-meter mostly. Oliver was team captain for 10-meter band, and I think Oliver, you did some of the 80-meter operation as well. And DK6SP Philip, another youngster. So both Philip and Jamie are the WRTC team of the youngsters, so they will be in Italy. Philip was our social media guy. He was almost all band guy. He and Jamie worked so much on the work bands, and I think he did a few hundred QSOs on QO100 as well. So he just couldn't stop working on any band all the time. It was just really amazing to work with both youngsters. And I think Oliver knows K0AV better, so he can tell a word or two about them.
Thanks, Denny. I think it's a very skilled team that we've had and have had in the past of contesters with this international flavor. In particular, Alan is a long-term NCCC guy. He was WA6 PMK, and I got to know him in high school here in the Bay Area. He was DL4QQ in the service when NCCC was formed, as well as I was in the service at that time. Then he came back AL7H, and he was primarily an operator at K6 EBB in the old days. You don't hear much about K6 EBB anymore. He's another one that passed away last year, but he had a big station up on Empire Grade and was quite a competitor for N6RO that was then WA6. What were you then in those days?
WA6DKF was a secondary call. Then I got PAA.
And W6PAA. But we're talking about ancient history. currently, Alan is primarily the 40-meter operator, at K0RF, and joined us and has joined me before in ZD8. But he replaced Kazu, and we sent Kazu over to Rodriguez's 3B9 KW to give us a 6-band multiplier. And it worked out pretty well. And he did very, very well. And looking forward to going back next year as well.
Hey, Oliver.
Yeah.
I sold my Drake 2B to Alan some 50-some years ago. Does he still have it?
He could. He could, and he's going to be, coming through here and going down to Visalia. So a lot of you folks that would like to also learn a little NCCC, history. He's a good one to hit up. Olaf G0CKV is also an NCCC member. He was here for quite a few years, working in the Bay Area, operated with, us a little bit, Denny and I, along with Seppo and Kazu and 86E. Alan, I'm sure, knows him pretty well as well. Olaf is a low-band specialist, enjoys 160 meters, and like I said before, he did all the modeling, and so he's the idea guy, and the organizer behind all of this, and we owe a lot to him and the fun times. Denny?
Yeah, agree. I mean, Olaf is pretty much the brain behind the whole operation. He took care of all the arrangements for the villa, renting, and pretty much it's really all of his idea, and we were all together executing. So this whole operation wouldn't be possible without Olaf. Again, the main reason was the contesting. So all that preparation, everything, it was about CQ Worldwide. So to do that, besides building the antennas, what we had to bring on a table, literally, that big 4-person table, or more than that, 8-person table, we pretty much clean of the items that would go normally there. We center it so that we put one more table as a 5th table. So this table was meant to have 4 operators. Everybody's looking at other person across the table. And for that operation, the natural choice, of course, it's really easy to bring K3s, very lightweight, great radius. We also opted to bring SP amplifiers because we used them in the past. They were pretty much reliable, and they're also very easy to carry on. A change for this year, we wanted to get that waterfall experience. So 2 radios had P3 pen adapters, 2 radios are just the SDRs out of the RX out. And that helped to see the band, and do SO2V as well. We had more than 5 laptops, I think, just for Operation 5, but we had spare. And learning from previous years, interstation interference was sometimes a problem. This year, just like previous year, we had high and low power bandpass filters, and some of the harmonic bands we use stubs, I think, on 40 and 20. I don't know if you put it on 15, but 40 and 20 for sure. So with all that gear put together, with all the antennas, we were excited to start the contest, and some of them are even excited more than the others. But that's how it looks like. This is how we were sitting, facing each other, amplifiers down on the side, keyboard on the side or top of the radio, monitor and external keyboards. All the wires, all the mess somewhere in between the radios, groundings as well. Power came from different circuits, so we managed this year to separate all the amplifiers to different circuits. And I forgot to tell, this is all 240, 250 volts, so we use the Type G adapters for US supplies. And there's, of course, one table behind us, the 160 and, 160 and 10 meter, 160 and 80 meter station. So the way we organized this setup, we had like a team captain for every band, and Philip, I think he was everywhere. he did majority of really hard to work QSOs on 160. And I think he was also covering for Alan and 20 meters and 10 meters. I think he was on all the bands, but most of the bands were captained. That was the easier way to set up the station, run the station, make sure that everything operates fine. The scores, we were pretty quite happy with this score, so we went over 30 million points. Amazingly, even the sunspots were improved, and our focus was on the high bands. We improved our 160 meter score from, I don't know, 180 QSOs to up to 300. And really, two most important things were that the receive antenna worked much better, and just amazing ears of Philip DK6SP. 80 meter was slightly down the last year, maybe 30, 50 QSOs, I cannot remember. 40 is about the same score. 20 went down just slightly. 15 was up, and 10 meter, of course, big time up compared to last year. Another mention to, while working before the contest and during the contest, some of the best times when we worked West Coast. So I just looked up at the statistics for Zone 3. On the 10 meter, best times to work that part of the world is right after our sunrise, so between 15 and 17 Zulu. We didn't have that many West Coast, maybe 20 or 30 stations this year only. On 15 meter, best times are between 14 and 18 Zulu. On 20 meter, even a little bit later, West Coast starts opening around 16 Zulu, but it goes all the way to 2. And so it's quite a long opening on 20 meters, and that is where we work over 100 or so West Coast stations. 40 meter, it has openings early in the morning, but also late in the evening. So both sunrise and sunset work well. 80 meter, I mentioned, it has a very short opening, maybe just through the gray line, no more than 10 or 15 minutes around our local sunrise and Mauritius local sunset. Those are the best time. Same for 160, even shorter window of that opening. So I think I worked last year AA6AA from Tom's station, W6YA, W6YI. Just amazing to hear friendly call signs from that part of the world. And yeah, this is the distribution. I don't know if it's easy to see the 10 meter on the top, the black lines, the 15, 20, 40. So as expected, 10 meter was opened for quite some time, and Oliver really enjoyed that. 15 almost all the time, as well as 20. It's like almost 20 plus hours of operations. Alan suffered a lot from the African noise, and this is one of the things we're thinking to improve next year. But he did still amazing job considering where the sunspots were and where we were on the 40 meter with a single vertical. So one of the improvements that we want to do is add another element for 40 meter. And yes, 80 and 160 are extremely hard for that part of the world because we were so far away. So another statistics, just as we predicted, this is the distribution of QSOs. Majority of them came from Europe and East Coast. And this blip here, 300 degrees, that's the West Coast and Caribbean, northern parts of South America. So that's another big chunk. And very tiny but significant blip is the Far East. Everything most of it comes from this angle, including KH6 and yes, Oceania and Japan. And this is how we ended. This is, I think, after we submitted the scores, but we have a pretty big cushion. So we finished fourth, pretty big cushion between the third and fifth spot. We know there's no way to compete with North Africa, with Caribbean. We just don't have that advantage. This was really a field day operation and made us happy to get over the 30 million points. Olaf was always happy last 2-3 years that he beat K3LR with only wires and no aluminum. If that's the goal. But Our real competition really, it's ourselves. So compared to 2019 and 2021, yes, the sunspots are rising. The 10 meter was non-existent in 2019. It was disappointing in 2021. This year was much better. We still saw the progress. We saw improvements, not by small step, but pretty big steps. So we're hoping to be this even next year or this year, 2023. I think out of all things, for us, the biggest thing is this was a fun operation. So I had extremely big fun. The setup of the antennas, preparation, construction work, operation. This operation was, I mentioned it's a survival and suffering. Far from that. This was a huge fun. I mean, a lot of work, but huge fun. I think, Oliver, you share the same sentiment.
I think very much. There was something for everyone in a super team. The one thing that I'd like to pass on that Mauritius is a beautiful island, with all of the sunsets and benefits of the South Pacific or the Caribbean. And along with it, we had a lot of good local support. We'll get into that in a minute. We've got a listing of some of the locals that work with us. But in adding to what Denny was saying on the incentives promoted by Philip of the flags and certificates, that Denny and I work on rewards like beers for QSYs. And if we pull you out of the pileup in the first 1 or 2 calls, we'd appreciate a beer at Visalia as well. In fact, I know that Rusty owes us, and probably some of the rest of you do too. We couldn't figure out who all the people we were able to pull out of, but we were definitely listening for California. Denny told you the prime times, and we try to pass that along to everybody. So don't forget us at Visalia.
Yeah. Okay, great. So when the contest finishes, we always think about things to do next year. And the villa has been rented for 2023, but usually what happens, the contest is finished, we're finishing our wine, our cheese, we're sitting down, we're exchanging the notes of things that went well, the things that didn't go so well. So we were just trying to gather that experience, and there's a lot of chatter in most of the month of December. So we're trying to immediately pin down what can we do for next year, and we have some ideas. Then what happens, then things go quiet for a couple of months, and somewhere around May or June, we start committing for next year, start working on our requests for licensing. Every year we have to request 3B8 license. We start purchasing tickets, the airfares and all that stuff should be all done by summer. So we do have our sites, we know we can improve. The goal is again to improve the score, to have fun again and come back next year. And with that, really, there are a lot of factors that have helped us in this expedition. So maybe again, Oliver can give the credit to people who have helped us.
This is a view departing of the Northern Lagoon and the area where we are from, where the antennas are broadcasting to. But a special thanks has to go to all the supporting cast. We're better than the Oscars here. LOTW and Charles M0OXO, who handles all the QSL cards. That's something that's not really fun for me, but very much appreciated. And behind the scenes, you've got Clive, that has always been there when we needed him to provide tools and run down materials.
Sledgehammer.
And Francois, they brought the satellite communications and stored equipment. Francois, in particular, cooked us a cake. We were going to have a get-together, but because of the COVID, we didn't have a get together this year, but I think over the years, everybody has worked Jackie. Back in 2014, he was still up and kicking pretty well, but he slowed down, quite a bit in the last couple of years. But he's still the dean of the corps there. Pat 3B8 GF is chief of the police in the capital. I think Ashwin is his son and works for the Coast Guard. I think he's the one that flew his helicopter over at 3 o'clock every afternoon or something like that. But there's a tremendous support from the locals. Much the same what I understand goes on in Aruba, but Denny, I think we thank you for putting most of this presentation together, and I'll turn it over to you for the closing.
I think this is really closing statement. We want to thank all of you who have worked us, because it's always amazing fun to hear familiar call signs from other parts of the world. So thank you.
Thank you guys for suffering so much so we could make that multiplier.
Yeah, so sort of similar to Bouvet.
Yet not.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thanks so much.
One thing I really love is when I see this very strong emphasis on solid engineering of a team like this. That was very, very impressive.
Gotta have it.
Thanks. Yeah, one of the key things is it's a pretty far away island, and you bring everything what you have. There are some hardware stores, but it's not similar to, again, every island. You cannot rely on finding connectors and important things. So you have to think way ahead of time what you're going to bring and not bring too much.
Are you planning to do basically the same kind of antenna setup this year? Because you said you're thinking about ways to improve.
Yes, so we think of improving the K9AY loop. So one of the problems, or it was much better, K9AY loop wasn't helping us to get the call signs out of pileup. It was really rejecting the African noise and the thunderstorms from the west when that part of the world starts opening into the night. And 40 meter and 80 meter, we had a lot of problem with noise, with the thunderstorms. So we were thinking of even improving and getting more northerly direction. So that's a receive side. On 40 meters, I think we're going to go with 2 elements and get more gain into Europe and North America to improve that score. By the way, what I forgot to mention, when we started operating, only first few hours we had big pileups. So pileups is not a big problem. It's way easier to work and handle them. Well, not easier. You don't get these unruly or big pileups or anything. I think it's 150, occasionally peaks of 200, but it's 150 an hour. So our emphasis is to SO2V. So if you have an operator, work and clean up the band map, because we just don't get these big pileups. What we get a lot of call signs that are weak, and they're all similarly weak. So getting them out of the noise is a challenge. And then when you run out of pileup, you still have to work multipliers. That is sometimes hard to fight being so far away from everybody.
Hey, Denny, you guys used those expert amps. Did you have any problems with those? We had some problems. We smoked a couple of them on Ducey Island. Have any?
We didn't run them hot. I think all the bands, maybe kilowatt, 1.0, 1.1 kilowatt was maximum what we ran. Well, biggest concern was the electricity in the house, but we never had problems them misbehaving or smoking. They work pretty well. So we just run them at, I don't know, 80%.
Yeah, and 3 or 4 operations there, and operations a half dozen times around the world that I've used it. There's never been a failure.
It's the 1.5 that was a problem for us, but the others were good. The 1.3 was great. I love that thing.
We only had one 1.5. All the rest were 1.3s.
a very minor question. You were showing the power strip and you mentioned adapters from 240. Were those just plug adapters or were they actually little transforming the voltage, or were you running everything off 240?
Just mechanical adapters. So we were running everything on 240.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was a little confused about what those things were. Okay.
Yeah, the power works. Just one thing not to forget: make the switch from 110 to 220. But everything was on 240. The thing is, British plugs are quite different. So we had a number of those, and we always leave them down at the island, so the next time we don't have to worry about it.
Hey, Denny, this is Barry. Great stuff. I have a question about those antennas. So I was doing a little reading. The VDAs, are they basically what I would consider a single element quad in a way?
Let's see if I can go back to.
Go back to that. It's great to see the pictures.
They're more like a two-element beam that has been bent. You've got one driven element and one reflector. So
in the diamond, one is a reflector and one is a director.
Yeah, you see the two little insulators at the top and the bottom?
Oh, I see. Yeah. I see. So that's one side and that's the other side.
Yeah.
And so then,
what makes it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, what makes it simple, again, it's just using a single pole to hang both elements or fold them onto each other. So that way it's just easy to assemble, build it up, and it's practically two element with not exactly the same gain as two element, but it's very close. Mostly it's lightweight and easy to put together.
Couple of questions. Is the spreader in the middle different lengths for different bands or not?
Yes, it is. And the table that you're looking at, has all of that information. The height above the ground at the base, the height of the boom, and the spacing of the element are all entered into ESNEC, Auto EZ, and modeled. And we've optimized it. If you go out on the website, there's a French.
Somebody just posted it. Yeah.
It posted, his design, but I think if you use, what he has there, you wouldn't have to go through your own modeling.
Okay. A couple other questions. Just stay on this picture. So you rotate the spreader so you can aim it, right, with the ropes.
Well, you see the coax. The coax is actually comes in over the whole boom, and you just rotate it. We have three guys, on each one.
Right.
And
that's what I want to know is where were the guys?
Pull it around with a coax.
So you have to undo the guys to turn it. Is what you're saying?
Not if you're careful where you place them. Yeah, but
so
180 degrees.
There is a limitation. There's a limitation. So with this set of guy wires, you can really rotate it only 90 degrees.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you would have to take the guy wires off. And our intent wasn't to rotate it 360 degrees. It was either, well, the first year when we had a single VDA, then we had to rotate it just pretty much where I'm holding it down here. You just come down here, rotate it, or you take the back of the coax and you rotate the whole antenna. That was way easier. However, this year, having two elements, we occasionally rotated one element in the morning, and that's only for a few hours. For the rest of the day, we kept both elements pointing to north.
Got it. Okay. Really clever. Thank you.
Should be known that this is definitely a configuration that's best where saltwater is part of the formula of the antenna. It's not an antenna you want to build in your yard. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work very good for you if you do that.
Say, Oliver, did you ever model using two booms so both elements were exactly vertical?
That is Tom Schuler's design. That started all this years ago, where he had a halfway vertical that was just tubing fed in the middle with a piece of coax coming off, and an insulator at the base, and a reflector behind it. And you just, in that case, you just move the reflector into different directions by moving the reflector. But I think that, any design, would work, including a Moxon. If you took a Moxon and you tied it to a pole like that, it would work just as well. It's critical here, that you at least know where to put it above the ground. The modeling indicates that, most of these are really good, quite close to the ground, less than a meter, from the ground at the base.
Yeah.
And the feed point is pretty high up, but we still want to keep the ends out of the water. So being in this nice calm lagoon, we didn't have to worry about the wind and waves splashing and watering anything. But we still paid attention to where exactly is antenna located, so that it still stays dry, and with the tides going up and down, that was never a problem. The problem was putting these guy wires, the ropes, and sometimes they were deep in the water. And I remember last year I had to really submerge and go under the water and put the stake into the ground and tie it off. So we don't preserve, these spots are never exactly the same. We kind of like try to remember, but every year we put them slightly off. And we experiment, we try to change things to improve the micro location of the antennas.
Thinking of your low band receive, I've done some things here with a phased pair of VE3DO loops, which can get nice and narrow, and you can use a phasing box like the NCCC phasing box, and move that angle around quite a lot. So I built them for 160, but I use them on 80 as well. My problem here is keeping the limbs from falling down and taking them down. But when they're working, they're very, very nice. I published on that on my website. But phasing any couple of arrays like the AYs or something would probably work just as well.
And that's the point we might improve next year. So what you see here, K9AY loop is pointing kind of like in the north-northwest. And it wasn't a problem. We didn't have a problem here in Japan on the low bands, because by that time the bands are quiet to us. The problem is when we just get open and we start working Europe, it's okay. But the moment when Europe gets louder, Africa gets louder, and the thunderstorms get louder, African tropical noise gets louder. So we may think next year to orient K9AY loop even further north, mostly not for receiving, but for rejecting the African side. And as you said, maybe even phase them to get more of the gain from that side.
Yeah,
we do get limitation.
You can narrow it up a fair amount by doing that.
You have one new message and one old message.
The
7:57 p.m.
The phasing between the
My
phasing
name is
between
Deborah
the-
Holland.
Ted. Hello, Ted.
This is an important message from the Publishers Clearinghouse Prize Patrol team. Congratulations on being a first place winner from our grand promotion. The confirmation number is 4711.
Ted,
Please
is
contact
that
our
you
prize
coming
patrol
from Blue
team at your
Lake?
earliest convenience to make
What was that
preparations for prize
confirmation number?
delivery at 516-853-7356. I repeat.
Hopefully we can mute her.
Call it in for him.
Greg, do you have the ability to mute people? I don't think I do.
Congratulations once more. Thanks for
You
making
won.
it
You know who it is?
Ted,
It's Ted.
K6W.
Maybe that was the bonus for working all of you guys and all of the bands and satellite.
Could be. Well, satellite footprint is only for Europe and Africa. It doesn't reach to US, the QO100. But yeah, just going back to this part, one of the challenges we also had, we have these rocks, but we don't have a full freedom to put antennas anywhere. So this rock right in front of the house would have been perfect for maybe a pair of 40s or that K9AY phased. This rock is a favorite spot for the local fishermen. And they would come early in the morning, and we just didn't want anybody step on the guy wires or do anything, hurt themselves or hurt our antennas. So we stayed away from this popular rock, which is which is really good for distant antennas. We did, I don't know if you can see in any of the pictures, try to put some of the, did a lot of work on putting some of the visible, I don't have a great picture, maybe in this one, if you can see, there's a lot of purple tape, purple fluorescent kind of like tape that we put on all the ropes at the ends up to maybe 6-7 feet to make sure that anybody who wanders around, tourists or anybody, see all the guy ropes. So that was improvement from last year to just ensure that we don't create enemies.
You mentioned that you had a bog, a beverage on the ground that didn't work. Do you attribute that to being really close to the salt water?
I worked on beverages on the ground, and I've used them, quite often. And the secret on a beverage on the ground is you don't put it on the ground. It has to be above the ground by a couple of inches and not in contact. Frank Donovan at W3LPL has gone into quite a bit of detail in low band antennas. At the last Dayton show, we put together a very good presentation. But in particular, the beverage on the ground can't be on the ground.
Yeah, but do you think it's close proximity to the salt water was the issue, or what do you attribute it to?
I attributed it to being on the ground. We didn't see Frank Donovan's presentation soon enough.
Well, okay.
No, but in general, in other times that we've used antennas at Marconi's site and Paul Dew is M5E. We had some great beverages, and I think that the real answer is that if you've got room, a real beverage about 6 or 8 feet above the ground, 600 or so feet long, is going to outperform these loops as well.
Yeah. The key to understanding beverages, which you guys probably know, is that a beverage depends on a poor ground underneath it.
Right, right.
This was a really good ground underneath it.
Well, is that volcanic rock?
Volcanic rock, but the whole thing is still pretty wet, and most of the parts is still part of the sand, and it's salty. So it is still on a slab of water.
The other thing is the separation, of the any loop, from these vertical antennas. In order to get proper isolation, you should actually be grounding your 160 and 80 meter antennas when you listen.
Yeah.
Would you want to ground them or open them?
Excuse me. Yeah, either probably.
I'm just thinking.
But my experience has really been with full-size beverages, and I wouldn't trade those for anything if you got the room. I guess that's my advice.
Right.
How do you think the VDAs would work on flat land in Oakley? Absent water.
I think they would, probably work. I haven't modeled anything, but you'd probably want to put out a few radials or something like that, or some field of, in the near field, to go around it.
Yeah, I'm thinking of they'd be mostly receive antennas for in-band two stations in band.
They should work very well.
Let me jump in here about verticals. Vertical, like quarter-wave verticals, definitely demand radials, but vertical dipoles don't.
That's right.
The other part is that any vertical antenna depends very greatly on soil conductivity, both in the near field and the far field. So part of the answer to your question, Ken, is how good is your ground?
Good. They say.
So yeah, possibility. And of course, on receive, it don't make no never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, the competition uses 2 stations on every band, and we're going to start with just one and see how it goes.
I was always told that these VDPs are pretty much ideal for these saltwater situations, typically a quarter wave away from salt water. But for listening, I don't think it really matters.
Right.
Yeah, as it's been pointed out, take a look at Tom Schiller's book, either the 4th edition or the 3rd edition. He goes into this in lots and lots of detail.
Yeah.
Well, the question is on transmit. How did we sound over on the West Coast?
When I worked you, you sounded like $1 million.
Loud.
On the high bands, I guess, on 20.
Yeah,
or...
I don't remember which band I worked you, Denny. I think I only worked you once.
Great. Yeah, we were hearing before the contest, of course, not during the contest, that we were really loud. And I mean, with all the work, yes, it's expected, but it's always surprised to know that you're loud from really that far away.
Well, gee, Denny, I worked you on 20 and you were 599.
Nice. Well, we'll do it again.
Denny,
Sorry, I missed you.
I'm wondering about you're practically antipodal from here, virtually. And I know on Aruba, at least, when the antipodal people for us are YBs in Indonesia, and they seem to come in almost any time of the day or night, at least on the high bands, and from any angle. I mean, it's the most amazing thing. You can sort of either hear them early in the morning or late at night. It's bizarre. And I'm wondering if you noticed that effect at all from the West Coast, that somehow there was more West Coast than you think there should have been because of you're literally halfway around the world.
So yes, antipode doesn't mean it's going to be hardest to work. I think it's always some offset from antipode that's harder to work. That's what I think for me, from US is always harder to work VUs and it's easier to work 3V or ZS. When West Coast opened, it's just interesting. Signals were good and there was no East Coast. There was no other US stations. So it was just fun to work that loud N7s and W6s.
Right. Well, the comment I was making was that at least on Aruba, the antipodal stations are easier to work because they're just they're there at odd times and from no matter what direction you turn the antenna. And there just seems to be some magic to the idea that the signals somehow go halfway around the world and in either direction. Maybe it's the same as short path and long path. But
I think so. I remember from Europe, for me, just going on a 30-meter band every night and working a ZL station, which is antipode.
Yeah.
And it's just for fun. So, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry I missed you on 160.
Yeah, 160 was harder this year. I mean, it was way more Europe than definitely West Coast. Yeah. Anything west of the US was harder.
Never at this time of year have we ever worked anybody on 160. There is no dark path in November.
Yeah.
Well,
and 160 propagation has been sort of punked the last couple of years and getting worse.
Denny, I worked you on 160 from Tennessee. I just checked my log and I put a comment in there that you were very loud.
Nice, yeah. But that's different. That's Tennessee. We, I believe, had more luck last year before the contest on 160. This year, I don't think, I don't remember working anybody from West Coast on 160. A few nights, basically local sunsets just before our dinner, we would go on during that gray line and try to work West Coast, and no, it was only 80.
Yeah, your best chance would be NA7TB for that big array they have in Arizona. Of course, we know Arizona is not West Coast.
That was great, Denny and Oliver. Thank you so much for the presentation and sharing.
Yeah, that was a great production, Denny.
Fantastic.
Really great.
Thank you very much.
You want
Are
to
you
stop?
going to give that at some future conventions?
We can see. I mean, I don't know. Well, my plans for the year are still open. I don't know, but should be okay to share. We'll see how it goes. We want to first focus on next year, and it takes a lot of effort to get ready.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to drop off here. I hope I don't end the call. That's the only problem. Greg, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
So
You got to turn leadership over to somebody that's not going to drop off.
yeah, so Denny, if you want to
Thanks, guys.
transfer it back to
I do have so let.
yeah, so it's NCCC Treasurer. That's the name of Greg right now.